That's the good stuff right here. Hard, soft literature. Yeah. I mean, sort of, kind of. I tell you what, I'll think I'll check it out. You know, I'm not normally one to destroy books, but so I'm just kind of big for it. Hi, folks. Nagi here to do another book discussion, and this time I am talking about Sleight of Paw by Sofie Kelly. It is just over 325 pages, and it was published in 2011. It is a sequel to a book I haven't had the pleasure to read called Curiosity Thrilled the Cat, but this is a direct sequel. And I'm just going to jump right into the summary of the book. Kathleen never wanted to be the crazy cat lady, but when Owen and Hercules followed her home from mysterious Wisteria Hill, she realized her mind wasn't playing tricks on her. Her cats have magical abilities. And when a body is found near Kathleen's favorite local cafe, she knows Owen's talent for turning invisible and Hercules' ability to walk through closed doors excuse me, will give the felines access to clues Kathleen couldn't get without arousing suspicion. With her pet partners and perhaps the assistance of a certain handsome detective, Kathleen is determined to find out who killed Agatha Shepard, an elderly woman who seems to have helped almost everyone in town at one time or another. Someone is hiding dark secrets, and it'll take a bit of furtive investigating to catch the cold-hearted killer. And yes, they really did go for a cat pun right near the end there. Now, the little tagline on the cover of the book mentions that this is a magical cat's mystery. And as that description entailed, her two pet cats that are involved with the investigation, kind of her allies, have unique abilities. Now, having not read the first book, I'm not exactly sure what the presumed cause of their gifts and abilities are. Having read this book, it doesn't seem like it's really explained. It's just one of those, just roll with it. It's a thing. It happened. It happens. And it's a very interesting concept to work with. It's, shall I say, a bit like the MacGuffin. I don't know if I'm using the term properly. I apologize for my ignorance, but it's such a strange plot device. It's such a strange vehicle. And I suppose what I mean by that is, usually if you have an item in your book or in your concept that has strange properties, that does wondrous and amazing things, it might not be, precisely understood. It might be quite mysterious and shrouded in mystery and concealed brouhaha, bubbling trinkets, scientific marvels, alien interference, the supernatural, so on and so forth. But usually there's that sort of tie, that bind, that inkling to suggest that it is beyond our understanding, but there's some explanatory force, no matter how, again, vague or general. But in this case, it's just there. It's just a thing that has happened and is occurring. And I guess that's what I find so bizarre, that, they're two cats. She adopted them into her household, and they have, between the two of them, split at the main powers that ghosts are known to have. Ability to turn invisible and the ability to go incorporeal, phase through various objects. And what I find, and I will give away the ghost, on this one a little bit that not only do they have these mystical abilities, they also seem to be fairly intelligent, able to understand what she's saying based on how it's written, how they insist upon going with her to certain areas, how I'll even read a bit of the preview from the front page to further explain, support this. The steps up to the apartment were at the back of the building. I set the messenger bag down on the floor of the covered porch at the top of the stairs. Herc popped his head out and looked around. Not a sound, I warned. Not a meow, not a rumble, not even a burp. Rebecca will be here any minute. I bent down to close the top of the bag. He jumped out, looked right and left, and disappeared through the door before I could grab him. Yes, through the closed door. My heart stopped. I dropped down into a crouch. Hercules was definitely gone through a thick, solid door. That was the other thing about him that I couldn't tell anyone. He could pass through any solid object. Doors, 6-inch thick walls, concrete foundations. I didn't have a clue how he did it. In fact, the first time I'd seen him walk nonchalantly through an 1.5-inch thick wooden door at the library, I thought I was having hallucinations or even a stroke. Because cats can't walk through doors or walls. Can they? So even though she has given him, her pet cat, explicit directions, don't do this, don't be non-disruptive, it's going off on its own tangent, doing its own thing, for its own purposes. It knows things that the cats seem to understand and be aware and know things that they shouldn't. And I don't feel like that's really spoiler territory, because that becomes apparent very quickly in the book. It doesn't pussyfoot around on that one. Ha, another pun. Anyways, looking at what I enjoyed about, I will say overall that I did enjoy this book. What I enjoyed about it, with some of the tone that it shows up with the main character, Kathleen. She's very reasonable as a character. She's grounded, I think would be the best way to put it, because that short preview summarizes pretty well what a realistic conclusion would be and how a reasonable person would respond to that situation. If you saw something that you know is physically impossible, you would say, that's not real, I didn't see that, so there's something physically wrong with me, or mentally wrong with me. I'm the faulty one here. And I will say that with her character, she can be a little repetitive at times. The way she interacts with her cats, it can get a little bit of a cycle, a little repetitive. But heck, I've been watching my own videos and I repeat things quite a bit myself, so who am I to make that criticism? And I will admit, try not to get into spoiler territory again, that with this mystery, which is the heart and soul of the book, it was pretty obvious to me within probably the first half. I had a pretty good lockdown on who I thought the culprit was, and I turned out to be correct, not just the who did it, but also their motivation. So on that sense, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a negative. I've read mystery books where they don't really give enough hints, enough clues to lead a reasonable reader to a reasonable conclusion that you could safely, reasonably, logically conclude who the culprit was and why. And sometimes I would blame myself that I just didn't catch something, I wasn't paying enough attention. But in this case, it was perhaps a little too obvious or a little too on the nose. But that might just be my perspective on that one. And I'm trying to think what else comes to mind with this book. I thought the tone was appropriate. I thought it handled the issue with the death, I thought it was dealt with in a somber manner. It balances the comedy well with different tense moments, drama. I suppose I should clarify as well. I thought the main character was mostly logical for the most part, but then towards the end with the climax, I thought they were making choices and taking actions that were a bit out of character, or at least going against the grain that they were reasonable and logical. I thought they were really jumping the shark as far as that's not a good analogy. They were definitely jumping to conclusions. They were taking actions that were very risky and I would think would have low or minimal reward, even in the best case scenario. So, especially again, since they are basically playing amateur detective, there's the main character has no background in forensics. They have no training. They're not aspiring to be a detective or a cop. So I thought that was a weak point. I thought that was a bit of a low moment. But I'll be honest again, a lot of that was for the point of creating some tension to make the climax more exciting. But I thought that was an unfortunate thing to sacrifice for that cause, that the character would make a really daft decision that I don't think really fits their norm. And again, having only read this single book, I can't explicitly say with all certainty that this really is their norm. I'm slightly perhaps projecting on that one. But I think with this book, the good thing is that it's not really hiding anything. It's very upfront about what you're getting into. So if you think this premise is absolutely stupid, asinine, not worth any consideration because it's just too, eye rolls stupid, then this isn't going to change your mind. It's not going to redeem itself in any fashion that you would change your mind on that. If you're a little bit open-minded, if you enjoy things going a little off the rails, being a bit goofy or silly, I think this would speak to you. I thought it was interesting, and frankly, I'm actually curious to read the first book, having read this one, and see if the series is continue on. I enjoyed it. I really thought it was fun, lighthearted, enjoyable, engaging. And I'm curious as well to see how the mystery elements are played in the other books, if it is sort of obvious, or if this one just happened to strike me in a certain way that I was able to solve it. Which I must admit, having read mystery books where you really have no idea what's necessarily going on, who the culprit is, it's nice reading a book where you can actually pick up on the trail, pick up on the clues, and be ahead of the main character in a sense. That's sort of a nice contrast where you're the one who's completely behind because you're not getting enough information. Excuse me. So, yeah, I would actually recommend buying this book. I'm happy to keep this. Well, I should say I'm not actually keeping this. I bought this to read myself and then give to somebody else who also likes mystery books. So I'm very I am going to recommend this to them without question, and I'm going to keep this series in mind and keep my eyes open for it in the future. But anyways, I think that's about everything. Somehow with this premise, I felt like I should almost mention something else, but no, it's again just sort of goofy, but there's nothing wrong with that. And what I find funny actually is, speaking of mysteries, this isn't the only the only one I've seen where it blends kind of the supernatural elements with mysteries. And even more specifically than that, a cat being thrown into the mystery or a cat. I mean, that's actually become quite common, it seems like. So I guess it's trendy, it's thematic, and timely for the moment, anyways. Excuse me. But anyways, I definitely recommend this. Check it out. And with any book I recommend, I'll definitely include an Amazon link for further inspection. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. See you later, folks. If I were one of the cats, I could just disappear. And maybe if I'm feeling inspired with my editing, I'll do a fade out. You can only hope that I'll disappear.